Welcome to Innovation Leadership. I'm Jess Larson, and I'm really excited for this episode because in addition to round 3 with my friend Matt McCall, if you haven't caught previous episodes about his time helping some of the wealthiest families in the world with their venture capital investing and $70 billion in exits, you need to go back and listen to those. I think one of the most magic things about Matt is using coaching as a competitive advantage and the way that he's the guy who has a founder's back on a board and seeing how those founders who get to choose who to take money from want Matt on their side. And I'm going to give Matt a couple minutes to talk about his background. And then this time he's co-hosting with me. And we've got a guest whose videos I've been watching for years and years and years and was really excited when Matt thought we could get him on the show. Matt, I gave a couple of highlights there, but what else would you tell people about your background before you introduce our great guest?
Yeah, I've had a kind of your classic journey of seeking parental approval, becoming an overachiever, not just like an overachiever, but a hyper overachiever. A lot of success, and then the adrenals blew out. Luckily, I didn't end up, kind of the path that a lot of other people go. And that launched me down this journey probably about 12, 13 years ago, around what is the good life, and can you actually be a high performer and be content and happy in life? Or are these mutually exclusive? Because I was being told, well, no, you can just go over here and do yoga and Tulum and you'll be perfectly fine. And then Maslow kicked my ass, right? What you can be, you must be. Right before all of this happened, I made a seed investment way back in the day in Heroic and Brian Johnson. And Brian is one of my dearest friends, and there are very few people, he's in the top 1 of people who have impacted how I think about life, how I show up, how I teach, because he has this amazing ability to take 2,500 years of wisdom, 600 books, 700 books, I don't know what you're up to at this point, encyclopedically has processed them in his head, can pull out facts on all of them. It's divine. I've never seen anything like it. And he'll tell you about what his mission is, but it's, in service to the world to help people have, the good life, to live with arete, to be heroic. So I couldn't be more ecstatic to be on this with Brian and also with you, Jess.
Great. Well, Matt, why don't you kick us off with your first couple of questions for Brian?
Sure. So Brian, when I coach my entrepreneurs, I saw so many of them burn out. In fact, almost all of them burn out. So they survived entrepreneurship. They didn't thrive. And so you and I started going back and forth about what are the principles and what are the yes ands. The first question, I guess I would say, is to you, what is the good life, number one? And is it possible to be a top performer who is also happy? Or do you need that anxious below the line drive to motivate you? Because my entrepreneurs, by the way, this is the number one thing the first month I'm working with them. You can tell they're holding on to their anxiety like there's no tomorrow, terrified that if they let it go, they are literally going to go into the abyss.
Yep. Well, first, great to be here. Matt, love you, appreciate you, and all of your support. You talk about just what Matt does, and the founder that wants Matt on his side, that Sherpa, helping you go up Everest. The times that I've gotten the storms on Everest, Matt's the first guy I call, literally. He's like, perfect, what do you expect? You're on Everest, you're trying to do heroic things, let's go. Just don't die. Rule number 1, just don't die. Rule number 2, just don't die. Rule number 3. So bless you for the sage counsel over the years. And Jess, really excited, just getting to know one another, but just admire you and all you're up to, and thrilled to be here. So, everything that we do with Heroic and with, our app and coaching program, whatnot, it starts with objective number 1. You got to know the ultimate game. So we've been seduced to think that the ultimate game is something other than what it actually is. So we're all playing this little game on a hamster wheel, thinking that's what's going to lead to happiness. And for 2,500 years, all the ancient wisdom teachers have told us, no, step back. So the way I like to frame it is we talk about ancient wisdom and modern science and practical tools to activate our heroic potential. So the first thing we need to do is know the ultimate game. And then, spoiler alert, when you win that game, you'll win all the other games. It's not an either or. It's in fact amplified, but you win the ultimate game first and foremost. So anyway, I like to bring in Aristotle and Martin Seligman as proxies for ancient wisdom and modern science. So Aristotle, of course, no introduction necessary. Martin Seligman, founder of the positive psychology movement, arguably the most impactful living psychologist and scholar in that field. So you ask him, hey guys, the question you just asked me, what's the ultimate purpose of life? What's the meaning of life? And they'll give you the exact same one-word answer. So Aristotle will say the summum bonum, the highest good, the greatest good of life, is to live with eudaimonia. Eudaimonia directly translated means daimon, good soul, right? So to have a good soul, that best version of yourself expressed consistently. Then we go to Martin Seligman and say, well, what do you think? And he kind of smiles, holds up a copy of one of his recent books, which is called Flourish, which is the English translation of the word eudaimonia. So we weakly translate it as happiness, but that kind of becomes a yellow smiley face. It becomes dissociated with the true sense of happiness, which is flourishing, which includes trips to Everest where you're getting hammered and life doesn't feel good. But we need to know that that's the ultimate game. And then the follow-up question to those two guys is how? How do I experience a good soul, live with eudaimonia, and flourish? And they, again, answer in the same way. We go to my right forearm for the answer to that question and my t-shirt in the name of my book, which is arete. So arete is the one-word answer. Aristotle, Matt's got it tattooed on his wrist. Arete is the one-word answer. Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, and the ancient Stoics. I got Epictetus and Aurelius on my wall. If you ask them how to live a good life, they'd say live with arete. The word translates as excellence or virtue, but it means something closer to being your best self, moment to moment to moment. And then you go to Seligman and say, hey, same question, how do I flourish? And he said, well, we founded the positive psychology movement by studying all the ancient wisdom traditions, and guess what they all said? Live with virtue. They described it differently in different cultures, but wisdom, discipline, love, and courage are the four cardinal virtues of basically every wisdom tradition. Now, it's my belief that when you win that ultimate game, you win all the other games. So my son's into chess. He wants to be a grandmaster, but I'm teaching him how to win the ultimate game, which is what allows him to show up energized and confident, and persist and have the grit to win the little game that he's using as a context to win the ultimate game. That's now a very long answer to your short question, but that's how I perceive it. And then it's not either or. You know, how do we make the best better and have them win in their energy, in their work, in their love, be the most energized, the most productive, the most connected version of themselves. And that's how you achieve all the things we want to achieve as ambitious guys that want to go out and make a difference in the world while enjoying the process. You know, obviously that's what I've dedicated my life to, and excited to chat more about.
That seems so heavy though, so big. Like, how does one, become the highest version of themselves? Is this like a massive undertaking that you have to do over years and years and years, or is there something you just get up in the morning and just start doing?
As with all great questions, the typical answer is yes and. So, Matt and I have both worked with my beloved coach and our beloved coach, Phil Stutz. In Stutz, the Netflix documentary, his number one rule is you're never going to be exonerated. You will never be exonerated from three inevitables of life: pain, uncertainty, hard work. But then arete isn't an abstraction. It's not I'm going to be my best self someday. It's this moment. It's almost like a heroic Eckhart Tolle power of now. And the way I describe it is, if you're capable of being this in any given moment, and you're actually being this, it's in that gap in which regret, anxiety, disillusionment, you do it long enough, depression exists. But it's only in this moment that we can close the gap. When you do that, there's no room for the negative stuff. When you live with arete, it's like you're high-fiving your inner daimon versus the diminutive of daimon is demon. So we've all got those two voices in our heads, right? We all know in any given moment what we're capable of, but listening to that daimon, doing your best moment to moment to moment, never perfectly, but more and more consistently. And then, of course, there's all the stuff that you and Jess and I focus on, that you kind of architect your life so you're doing these things that work for you. And we can talk more about the protocol that we're really big on with the app and my work. But yes, and, it's a lifetime process. And this moment, you can choose to step in between stimulus and response, be your best self. And when you do, you're going to feel great. And when you don't, you're not. And you do that enough in any given day, that's the day you want to numb yourself, however you choose to numb yourself, versus the positive. You feel a deep sense of joy and agency and purpose.
So what's interesting is, what I love about you and I'll interact with my entrepreneurs, but then I love teaching students because it really forces me to really get it down to the bones, right? Because they're young. And I just launched my Good Life class recently. And the very first class, I was trying to explain the four virtues, and it wasn't up here. And I finally said, you know what? Here's a framework. Let me run this by you real time. And then you can tell me if I'm teaching it completely wrong. Wisdom is very simple. What's one thing I can do? What's one thing I can stop right now regarding the task I'm doing? We all have that feeling inside of us that says we could be doing this version of ourselves, but we're right here. Get up at 6:30 in the morning, right? Like literally something as simple as that. And by the way, stop having that second drink at night, right? And so the first thing is wisdom, curious. One thing I can do to start. Second, then is discipline. Freaking do it, right? Get an accountability partner. Get up every single morning for the next 21 days till it becomes a habit, right? And there's ways to do it. Third is courage. You got to have the courage to do it, right? Sometimes it's uncomfortable stepping into that space. And then the fourth virtue is love. Everyone's like, well, what the hell is love? And what I say is love is it has to be in service to something that's not you. If it is, you're back on the hedonic treadmill. It's all about you. But if you're doing this to get up in the morning and you show up at work and really help your entrepreneurs or the needy or the hungry or whatever, or our podcast listeners or whatever, now the flywheel goes. And so I said literally every morning or every day, just get up, ask that one thing, what's one thing I can do, one thing I can stop, do it. That's one thing I can start and stop, and you get this 1% compounding that, as Brian, that's like 37,000% a year or something big like that, right? That's what I taught, or that's what I should. Did I mess that up?
Are you kidding me? I'm gonna graph this up to how I teach things. That's exactly it. I mean, in my mind, wisdom is knowing how to live a good life. Discipline is doing what you need to do, whether you feel like it or not. Courage, science says, is the willingness to act in the presence of fear. And then love, very importantly, is the hero's secret weapon. So in the ancient world, when I do my talks, I always define what the word hero means. Russ, Jess, I'll ask you, do you know what the word hero actually means? No one has known the answer to this question whenever I've asked it. Do you happen to know what the word hero etymologically means? Yeah, so in ancient Greece, where they came up with a word, they didn't pick a word for a hero that meant tough guy or killer of bad guy. The word hero in the ancient world meant protector. So a hero was a protector. A hero did the hard work to have strength for two. Everyone else is running away. The victim runs away from the battle and the challenges of life. The hero leans in. But their secret weapon is love. They live for something bigger than themselves. And I love the way you framed it, Matt. You want to get off the hedonic treadmill and live a eudaimonic life. By the way, there's no treadmill. You're actually making progress. The key is love. Dedicate your life to something bigger than yourself. Every day, connect to those you serve. The science on this is unequivocal. And then do the hard work to eat, to move, to sleep, to breathe, to focus your mind, to show up for something bigger than yourself. For me, it's my wife, it's my kids, it's you, it's our team and our community that we serve. But I love the way you frame that up, and I'll be borrowing that. And what a lucky class, by the way. Where was that class when I was going through university? I was at UCLA, This is exciting to imagine, bringing this wisdom in to the educational system from the ground up. And really teaching the kids and young adults how to live a good life, and that it isn't, again, a trade. In fact, you're amplifying your impact with the joy that you create in your life.
So here's what's interesting in my class is I did a little question at the beginning. I said, okay, who here, how old were you when you first learned there's hierarchy and winners and losers? 3, 4, 5 years old. When did you first seek approval from your parents and you learned that you got the dopamine hit if you behaved a certain way? 3, 4, 5, right? And we keep going down this. Who here said, I'll be happy when, right? The hedonic question. Everyone raised their hand. I said, who goes from one, I'll be happy when, to another, I'll be happy when, not happy. Next, I'll happy when. And it literally does not friggin' stop. And it's probably been going on for the last 10 years. Literally every student raises their hand. Okay. So then I say, who here was taught the basic fundamentals around happiness? Crickets. I said, just one thing to be happy. Right? Crickets. They were taught how to get approval. They were taught how to get dopamine hits, but they were not taught, none of us are taught. And so I literally look at this and go, it's as if the devil returned and said, this wisdom hasn't changed for 2,500 years. What's Christianity, Buddhism, Stoics, they all say the same thing. Let's just cut off like the last piece of courage and love and maybe kind of transform wisdom into not what's the highest version of me, but how do I get approval? How do I get more money? How do I whatever? And then we're going to make you live in that personal hell. Again, I don't know how that sits with you, number one. And second, maybe for people who don't know what the hedonic treadmill is, I didn't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because one of the things that I think is this is a 2,500-year-old challenge. So the reason why Socrates and Plato and Aristotle and the Stoics. And I mean, the Bhagavad Gita, it features a reluctant warrior, basically the equivalent of a Navy SEAL these days, right? Or a Ranger, Delta Force, etc. It's a reluctant warrior being counseled by his god to go win the external battle, a war. He needed to go fight a war, which was a metaphorical representation of the inner battle between vice and virtue. So one of the things that I think is going on is this isn't a new challenge. You don't talk about those things 2,500 years ago unless the challenges existed between vice and virtue. But the thing that's happening now is that inherent fundamental human challenge of human civilization has been amplified to the nth degree in our modern world with modern social technology and all the algorithms driving moral outrage and then all the extrinsic fame, wealth, hotness. But it's the core kernel of a challenge that's existed that's just at the highest degree of difficulty. And now is when we need to be teaching those things more than ever, and that wisdom to truly know how to leverage all the technology, whether it's the upcoming, the current AI revolution or whatever. We better have wise human beings who understand how to win this game. But I think that's important, that it isn't necessarily a new challenge per se. It's just at the nth degree of magnitude and amplification. Therefore, we better practice our philosophy and teach ourselves and our kids and the next generation how to conquer these challenges. Or, as Jonathan Haidt says, you're going to have an anxious generation after another anxious generation after another anxious generation. And the mental health challenges, 1 billion people in the world suffering from mental health disorders, the self-harm rates among our young girls and boys, it's horrifying. And now's the time to bring this in. And anyone listening to this, we have to create new cultures within our organizations, whether it's in the educational system, the nonprofit world, or the startup world, or the Fortune 500 world. Like, we are the ones that need to practice this philosophy, be the change, and then bring it into the cultures to deal with the burnout and all the other things going on. But again, the data on businesses, they flourish. It's axiomatically true. A business in which individuals are flourishing is going to flourish more than a business in which people are not. And they're in despair or burned out. Like, which version of you wins? The version of you that's really flourishing or the version of you that's not? It's not debatable. Well, which version of your company is going to win? The version of your company in which all executives and team members are truly doing what they do when they're at their best or not. I mean, these things aren't debatable. The question is, how do we implement them, more consistently and then again, very importantly, enjoy the process.
So Brian, let's say you have a student who is on the hedonic treadmill. They're phenomenal getting straight A's and getting on varsity teams. Not that I know anything about this. And they know something feels a little bit off. But they're really good they had a bad soccer game. They had a bad test. They go, you piece of crap, you're not enough. Get back in there. Look at every possible thing. They're focused on the outcome, the A, and they just grind themselves into the ground. Michael Phelps went down this rabbit hole, right? How would you tell them to change that approach? Because they're like, I want to become the best student I can become. I need the A. I want to get into Harvard. I want to have a good life. What would you tell them? How to change or pivot that?
Well, even to use Phelps, who I admire so much, as a subtle tweak, the transition, there's a lot of, that's a nuanced conversation, but the ultimate game, if he was explicitly told, this is the ultimate game, and then you're going to go be the best Olympian in history, awesome, go play that game really, really well. But no, the ultimate game you're playing is to become the best version of yourself. That's the ultimate game that we're striving to play, right? And this is, when my son's only 12. But this is what, chess is just a little context for him, and he wants to play at a very high level. And I have goosebumps right now. Imagine it. He wants to be a grandmaster. He's 16. He's very aggressive goals. So it's not that the outcome goals in and of themselves are problematic. In fact, they're really helpful. You need to have a clear target. Aristotle says we're teleological, right? So you have to have a target at which you're aiming your life force. But the ultimate target, I think, needs to be arete, eudaimonia. Then you use your little game, whether it's swimming in a pool or playing on a 64-square chessboard, to master the ultimate game. And then it becomes, again, both a lot more fun and you outperform. So my obsession with Emerson, my son, and if I was working with Michael Phelps when he was 12, I'd teach him these things. Okay, we're going to get your eating, your moving, your sleeping, your breathing, and your focusing dialed in, because that's what's going to help you outperform. The protocol we're running before every chess match, no 12-year-old in the country is doing what Emerson's doing before he shows up, before a chess match. But we aren't forgetting the fact of what our ultimate game is. Every single time we go to a chess tournament, we drive out of our property, we're driving down the street, I say, what do you want, buddy? what do you want in life? And he says, I want to be a good person and I want to become a chess grandmaster. Say, great answer, great order. Then I literally quiz him. Well, how do you be a good person? And he gives me the wisdom, discipline, love, courage. What does that mean? He gives me his little 12-year-old answer of that. Oh, okay, cool. Once we've established that, let's talk about, you want to be a grandmaster when? Specificity is important. You want to get into Yale? Perfect. Let's get you into Yale or Harvard or whatever. No problem with that. That's great. We don't want to take that away. But we want to focus it again within a broader context. That's what I found to be impactful. Then there's a great new book, to make sure I briefly mention it, called 10 to 25 by David Yeager on the science of motivating young people. He was one of Carol Dweck's proteges, who I love, mindset theory, etc. He has what he calls a mentor mindset. So there's a mentor mindset, which has really high standards and really high warmth and support. Now, most parents fall into, in our world, fall into really high standards and they forget to be warm. Then the kid feels like they're on a hamster wheel, and if they ever get an A minus, they're in trouble. So you have to have both high standards and warmth. Otherwise, you're what he calls an enforcer. But you don't want to drop this. You don't want to drop the standards and only have high warmth. That doesn't work in the world either. Then you're a protector. You shield your kid from all of life's challenges. We don't want to talk about Yale. You might not get in. Oh, that would be horrible. No, let's go. If that's what you want to do, let's strive to be our best in the classroom and outside of the classroom. But let's remember what we're doing and have that warmth, have that love. And then very importantly, you tell them why you're doing it. You tell them, I tell Emerson all the time, to use him again, I want to help you get everything you want in life. That is my number one commitment. As hard as I work, you are important to me. And why we have these high standards is because I love you, I care about you, and we're going to hold you to that in our idiosyncratic style. But I think when we have the high standards with the warmth and the love, with the wisdom to play the right game, everything changes. It's a very subtle, simple shift. But then you have David Brooks's second mountain that becomes the primary mountain. And yeah, you knock off some fun targets, whether it's an Olympic gold medal for the very few of us who will achieve that, or the entrance to a college you wanted to go to. Perfect. But it's all just little milestones on the ultimate game. And we never forget that,
It sounds, though, like what you're saying is focus on the process, not the outcome. Set the outcome, set the goal. Fine, that's a quick exercise at the beginning. Do some reflection. But every single day, say, who's your favorite UCLA coach?
We got him, John Wooden. He's hiding behind one of those heroes back there. Yeah, work the protocol. Put on your socks. Do the basic fundamentals as well as you can, right?
Yeah. So when you're talking to Emerson, are you like harping on, we got to win this tournament, we got to win this tournament, we got to win this tournament? Or are you asking him to focus on other things?
Yeah, again, this is so fun and great questions in context. So, but let's not forget that John Wooden, everybody knew what Wooden aspired to do as he showed up. It was win an NCAA championship, And with that target set, then what he wanted to win was Arate. That's all Wooden wanted. He wanted you to create a masterpiece day. He wanted you to get everything you possibly had in that moment, in that game. That was the win for him. You may or may not have a win on the scoreboard, or you might win, but you didn't give your best. He wasn't happy with that. So his obsession was Arate. He didn't call it that, but he wanted his players to do their absolute best. Not just his players. He wanted the team behind the team to flourish and to do their best, And then I think you get into some good times. Jess, I'm seeing you.
Animated.
We should find something we're excited about.
I want to talk about this. So, thinking about this, and obviously, I greatly appreciated watching your videos for years, and I got my book recommendations from you, where I needed a reminder of a book I read a couple of years ago, so instead I just watch your videos to bring it back. But thinking about specifically, it's like becoming the best version of yourself. I mean, so many of us, whether it's a parent, an investor, a CEO, or whatever we do, like impatience is typically not part of that, right? And so I'm thinking about like emotional regulation. So I know you train special operations folks. I'd be interested in any thoughts you have for, whether somebody listening to this is special ops or an investor or a CEO. Any thoughts, any daily routines, any protocols to help us with our own like emotional regulation of doing what we really think we should do instead of what we feel like doing?
Yeah, Jess and I, by the way, just to be clear, Jess and I are the Delta Force of the venture world, okay?
I was going to actually make that explicit, so I appreciate you doing that. I mean, that's when I think of the elite performers that I know you've worked with, Jess, and that we're blessed to work with. It's like That's exactly right, though. I mean, even the parents that are out there striving to do their best. I think that it all starts with energy. So, Freud, with whom I don't agree on most things, said a good life comes down to your work and love. If you can get that right, you're going to have a good life, right? To which I say yes, and if your energy sucks because of poor lifestyle choices, good luck showing it up in either your work or your love. And I've experienced a lot of ups and downs emotionally in my life. And so I'm very attuned to the fact that my physiology drives a lot more of my psychology than most people get. So my John Wooden approach is dominate your fundamentals. We talk about eating, moving, sleeping, breathing, and focusing your mind. I show up in those domains like I'm a world-class athlete or a soft, warrior. Like that's the level of intensity with which I show up. Sleep is a sport for me. So, I'm training my recovery such that I can go hard. You cannot deliver at the level you want to, whether you're any form of special forces or executive, without disciplining yourself on that. And so I start with the energy, then we go into productivity, then we go into connection. And the way that I frame it up very practically is you have a protocol, you have a checklist of things you do when you're at your best, right? So when I fly out to do a talk, I always make the joke. I wouldn't have gotten on the plane if I didn't know the pilot went through a checklist. For a simple reason that pilots that don't have checklists crash airplanes. Surgical teams that have checklists kill over 40% less people than those who don't. You shouldn't get a surgery with a team without a checklist. So then my question is, if you want to have a great day, do you have a checklist? Not a to-do list, but a list of things you do when you're at your best in your energy, your work, and your love. So we systematically help the people we work with get clarity on their protocols. Who are you at your best energy, work, and love? I eat a certain way. I move my body a certain way. I sleep a certain way. I do a certain meditation practice. So then my question is, are you doing those things? Do you even know what they are? And then are you doing them consistently? And then most importantly, and this is where Phil Stutz changed my life the most, are you doing them, those simple basic fundamentals, when you are getting hammered by life? When you feel most overwhelmed and anxious and stressed and burned out, which is when most people in my old version of myself would go off the rails. I do all the stupid things I know I shouldn't be doing. And Phil taught me in one of our first coaching sessions how to cultivate what he calls emotional stamina that I now call antifragile confidence. Your ability to tolerate pain, uncertainty, hard work. The rule is this, and then I'll be quiet. The worse you feel, the more you're getting hammered by life, the more committed you need to be to your protocol. When you do that, you embody Nassim Taleb's anti-fragile wisdom. The wind, life's challenges, will extinguish a candle, but it will fuel a fire. So you want to be a fire and wish for the wind. But the only way you can sustain that level of emotional control and regulation is if, when you feel most hammered, you're most committed to your eating, your moving, your sleeping, you're controlling those controllables. I mean, that's what great performers do. They have absolute mastery of the fundamentals, which is why John Wooden taught his players how to put on their socks. You can't do that right. You can't make your bed Admiral McRaven style. Good luck. But we hear that and we're like, oh, that's cute. But they're not being cute. These are things that they train relentlessly. And when I work with special forces operators, I make the point, you're training them to win that war. But when I talk to them, I cross out ultimate game and I say ultimate war. And then I say, you're not training them how to win this war. You're not training them how to win off the battlefield. Are you teaching them how to show up in their energy, their work, and their love? That's the ultimate war and the ultimate game and the ultimate business. Those are the most important meetings of your life. The time you shut down to get a good night of sleep, your meditation practice first thing in the morning. You're not missing the podcast interview you're doing or the board meeting you have, but you're missing your own workout, your meditation, your time with your kids. Like, we got to discipline ourselves. And that's a very long answer to how I see emotional stamina, regulation, and what we call
I love it.
anti-fragile
I
confidence.
actually want to ask Matt the same question. Matt, entrepreneurship is a bumpy sport, and venture is that on steroids. So I'm interested for yourself, things that you felt like help you with emotional regulation when, people are having complete freakouts and tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars are being lost, and there's some serious wins going on.
Yeah, well, this is a great question, and we're going to see a lot of this because as companies start to fail, which is going to happen, we're going to have a cleaning out. This is all good, by the way. Everything's always up and to the right, but we're going to have some cleaning out going out. VCs are going to trigger and not put the oxygen mask on their own face first. And then what they're going to do is in the middle of the board meeting, they're going to tell the entrepreneur who's already freaking the hell out, the equivalent of, do you appreciate what the hell's going on here and what might happen to the company? And what they're saying is, please make me feel better, right? This is kind of the equivalent of, you have the bad report card, you come home to your parent and they freak the hell out and they just start going to town on you. You're never going to get into a good school. I can't believe you did this, dot, dot, dot. All that does is drops you into your amygdala, right? And fight or flight, and they'll do anything for approval, but they're going to hide information. And suddenly now you have a dysfunctional company. So a couple of things, I learned this the hard way. In 2000, I came flying in. I'd never really failed at anything per se. And the market drops 95% and all 14 of my companies were going to go in the crapper. And I lost 15 pounds and I was clinging to each one like, dear God, please don't go under, please don't go under, please don't go under. And it was literally killing me. And I talked to an old vet, a guy named Roger McNamee, who changed my life. And he said, in those times, you have to, first of all, focus on those things that are important to you. Start going to lunch with your kids. Reaffirm your friendships. Energize yourself and let go. And what he basically was saying is, he said, it's like Homer strapping himself to the mast as the storm is hitting and tearing his hair out and saying, why me, God? Why do I have this storm? We're going underneath and saying, I got a storm. Okay, we got to get a storm. What can we do? Batten the hatches. What are the processes, the fundamentals we can work on? And so that's what I started doing is I said, okay, I'm going to do the surrender experiment. I'm going to let go of the outcome of the company. The company is, whatever's going to happen to the company is going to happen to the company. It has nothing to do with my self-worth or if I'm smart or not, which I had identified it as that. The second is, what can I do now to help that entrepreneur and help this company? So this is kind of a baby version of our tape before Brian came into the picture. The most important thing that I've now really inculcated is I have to get out of a mindset of how can I leverage this entrepreneur to get a huge win and get whatever financial outcome at the end of the day. And if that means sticking a cattle prod into them, great. To I have a fierce, heroic commitment to this hero in front of me who's going through a very difficult time. And it is my job to have frank conversations with him, to do rational things, but to get myself grounded and then get them back to equanimity, back to ground. And if I can do that, we are going to increase the chance of success exponentially because now they're not clinging, right? As long as they're anxious and clinging and terrified, they're going to make bad decisions. And also we attract the energy we put out. And so those entrepreneurs are like a lot of these great entrepreneurs will say, yeah, it's a setback, but I know with utmost conviction, we're going to get there, right? We will get to that location. It's just a little bit of a setback. Or as Phil Stutz says, I always tell my entrepreneurs, number one, I want you to say the following phrase, ain't that a hoot? We just lost our major customer. And they're like, what the hell are you talking about? And I'm like, you got to make it playful. You have to get out of your amygdala. Number one. Two is Phil Stutz's great quote, welcome to the Olympic gymnasium, baby. We're about to grow. Reversal of desire. So you can either go below the line. I'm a victim. God, this always happens to me. I can't believe, oh my God, the company's going to go under. My wife's going to leave me. My husband's going to leave me. No one's going to, right? Or you can be like, yeah, baby, we're about to grow here. I only grow in discomfort. And man, the example I used with the students last week was I said this, when you go to the gym and you pick up the weight and it's too light, do you go with a lighter weight? They're like, no, you go with a heavier weight, one that'll really get you ultimate growth in your muscle. Well, what if you did that in life? You get hit by something. You're like, hey, you know what? This weight isn't heavy enough, right? I want to get even more so I can grow even more, but we don't do that. We go the other direction. So anyways, a very, very simple thing. You have to release on the outcome. If you hold on to the outcome, you're screwed because who knows what random thing's going to happen. You have to go back to the process and the fundamentals, just do them. But this is where love comes in. You have to love that entrepreneur. You have to fear. I think Brian was the one who said fiercely, right? You have to fiercely love that entrepreneur as a hero and show up for them over and over again. And if you do that, by the way, now you're in service to them. Guess what? You feel a lot better. You're not clinging, you're not grasping. But venture man, it will kill you if you don't play
Yeah.
this game this way.
Brian, first of all, if people want the book, if people want to learn more about the companies, tell people where they can find more online.
Yeah, so the book Arete, Arete, if you're listening to this, wherever you buy books. And then Heroic, the app, same thing. You can find the app, just search Heroic. We're the training platform in iOS and Android, where we take a lot of these ideas. Our whole thing is moving from theory and feeling fired up after a chat like this. Hopefully, if you're this far into it, you've gotten an idea or two that might be impactful, from theory to practice to mastery. And mastery is just more practice. So the app is built with a lot of theory and distillations of great books that you mentioned. You watched some videos where I summarize them. So we've done that over 700 books now, Matt. 1,000 is on the horizon, so we're going for that.
They're all encyclopedically up here on him. It's incredible.
Let's go. But dude, I loved what you were saying. And if I can go back real quick, Matt was talking about winning the ultimate game. So in those moments, we got a letter from the SEC. We made history as the first company to ever raise $5 million via the new SEC's crowdfunding regulations. And then 2 days before we launched, we built our app with the same company that built Slack, Tinder, Uber Eats. 2 days before we launched, I get a letter from the SEC opening an investigation into our business. Matt's the first guy I call. Matt, it was actually and I have goosebumps right now and tears in my eyes. You're the one who came up with, he literally said, welcome to the club. You're in the big boy gym now. Phil Stutz laughed and said, awesome, we're finally facing real bullets. And why those two guys? And what Matt gave me was, dude, you're not alone. Common humanity. You're not the first CEO to face a challenge. You're going through the hardships. Perfect. I've been there, done that. The great coaches, great performers, great CEOs have been there, done that. They maintain a center of calm, as General Powell said. And you do that for me, Matt. It's what Phil, nothing can rattle Phil. Matt has never lost his stuff on me. He's like, good, welcome to the club. Then he gives me other examples of people that went through way harder times. But then the key is practice your philosophy. So in those moments in which you get hit, so I meditate, but I went from, 20, 30 minutes a day to 2 hours a day. Meditated for an hour in the morning, an hour at night. I treated sleep like a sport. I got my 3 best months of sleep ever after getting that letter. And I knew we did everything right, morally and technically. It was just, we were the first to do it. Welcome to the club. But I was out raising $15 million. $5 million in, I had to go restructure all of our partnerships. We had to let people go. It sucked. It was just horrific. We almost died, which is why I got Matt's rule number 1, don't die. Rule number 2, don't die. Rule number 3. But I executed my protocol at what I aspired to be the highest levels I ever have. We hired a firm to navigate the process. Then they hired me at the end of it to keynote their partner talk, to talk about what we did to navigate it, because they'd never seen anyone do it quite that way. So the rule is, when you're hit, you practice your philosophy. You don't go off the rails. And that's what you did for me, Matt, having been there and done that, and what I aspire to do for our community, etc. But just wanted to compliment that, and loved your question and your answer, Matt, and just super grateful that you're practicing your philosophy at such a high level to help me do so as well.
So I have a question. So there are a whole bunch of folks. I mean, I did a blog post on the 7 to 10 year cycle, and we're definitely going from one cycle to the next. Started in COVID, it's really kind of hitting now. And as that happens, there are a lot of people who are depressed because their cheese got moved, right? And they're really not certain what's next. And as a result of that, they're getting depressed. And so they hear something motivational, but they have to get up in the morning and their energy level is way down here. They don't feel good about themselves. They feel like they're not enough, all of the hedonic stuff, because they don't have the dopamine hits coming in. What's your advice to them? Is it just, sorry, you're kind of SOL right now? Or what would you say to them?
Me?
To help them? Yeah, just to kind of start the momentum way.
100%. And this again is the workshop that we do when we do our work. I want you, if you're inspired to think about you at your best, and think about who you were and what you did, specific things you do when you're at your best. And we have people create a do and don't list. So you at your best, what were you doing? What were you not doing? Right? And they make a list. Oh, I was eating, I was moving, I was sleeping, I was spending time with my kids in this way, taking them out to lunch, I was journaling, I was praying, I was going to church, whatever it is, right? And then what were you not doing? Oh, I wasn't binge drinking, I wasn't, doom scrolling, I wasn't doing certain things when I was at my best. So we have them make a quick list, and then we have them circle the one thing that they did when they were at their best that they're not currently doing. And then more importantly, the one thing that they weren't doing. Because the fastest way to change your life isn't to start doing something new. It's to stop doing the thing that's destroying your life. So I used to stay up late and watch, shows and stuff. And I'd lose an hour or two of sleep because I wanted to be amused, not a good idea. But That's the fastest way to change your life, to identify the thing that you're currently doing that you didn't do when you're at your best. It's the kryptonites, we call them. Superman can eat as much broccoli or whatever he eats to stay healthy, but if he has kryptonite in front of him, he loses all of his power. So that's what I would do, and you have to do it. When the wind kicks up, you can't be the fragile candle and go off the rails and do all the vicious things you do, addictive things. That's when you need to step up, rip off the, whatever, go from Clark Kent to Superman or whatever your metaphor is, and do those things. And then again, this is how you take it off the bumper sticker. And it's not a warm and fuzzy idea. Then literally, you're in the gym lifting real weights and you're getting stronger. The thing that used to kill you makes you stronger. When you get that, then you have this deep sense of confidence that you can handle whatever life throws at you. Your business might fail. That we're playing this game, and there will be games that you lose in different contexts, but you know who you are and how you respond to life when it hits you. That's what I'm trying to teach my kids. That's what we try to teach our coaches, and that's life changing. If we can get even 2 or 5 or 10% better at that, the worse I feel, the more committed I am to my protocol. And that number one, start and stop, is how I like to counsel people.
Wait, so it can be as simple as just go to bed at 10, and then for the first hour, don't check your Facebook and Instagram?
100%. That's a good idea. That's a very good idea. Yeah. Get a good night of sleep. Today started last night, and then use that first fresh hour to solve whatever problem you have. Do the deep work before inputs, because I can't think creatively once I've had the world, swamp my consciousness. Do hard work on the most important thing. That's my number one target I hit every day. You can get a lot done and I'm 365. You do even 15, 30, 60 minutes on that. Amazing what can happen. Versus this is Stephen Covey 101. Be proactive rather than reactive. It's all the things we know. We just got to start doing it more and more consistently, especially when we don't feel like it.
So I had, it's funny, I heard a fact yesterday. I don't know if it's true because I didn't hear it from Huberman, who's my go-to. But as you're going to bed and as you're getting up in the morning, your brain has different brain waves, which means you have different receptive states. And says you have a much higher propensity right before, right after, to have high alpha, which means you're more, and maybe it's one of the others, I don't know. I don't have your memory. Which means you're more susceptible to input or suggestions, which is why people say, think about something before you go to bed, like, a question to your subconscious, and then let the subconscious do its thing. But he said first thing in the morning, if you immediately fire up Instagram and Facebook, you're in your most suggestible moment. So instead of positive things coming into you, suddenly the doom scrolling starts. And by the way, you get 45 minutes into that, your day is pretty much done by the time you've gotten out of the bedroom. I know this is an early investor in Facebook and their top gaming platform. I know what our psychologists were doing. So this isn't me like intellectually trying to figure out what's going on. I have a lot to make up for in my life in the world of karma. But anyways, this has been absolutely incredible.
Yes, this is so fun. Thanks for making the time for this. One more time. Matt, people want to find out about Forge and what you're doing and following you. Where online?
Best is where my thoughts are deposited, which is somethingventured.com. Subscribe. That is my place where I'm in service to others.
And then Brian again.
The most.
The Heroic app you can find in iOS, Android. Heroic.us. Heroic.us is the website. And then the book Arete. Jess, I appreciate you. And Matt, super fun. Great stuff.
Yes, this is so fun.
By the way, everyone download that app.
We should have just
changing.
We should have just booked like a half day for this interview instead of how long we booked. This is great. Looking forward to staying in touch. Everybody, thanks for listening. And guys, thanks again for coming on. Bye now.